by Jon Krakauer. It is basically about this young man named Chris McCandless who gives up what most would consider a perfect life for a life of freedom, and as he says, never owning anything more than what he can carry on his back at a dead run. Chris came from an upper-class, well-to-do Virginian family. He had good grades, he went to a good college, and he had $25,000 savings. However, whenever he graduated college, he threw all this away. He donated all of his money to charity. He even replaced his name, Chris McCandless, with a new name, Alexander Supertramp. As he says in one of his journals, he thinks every day should be a new horizon, and he shows us by hitchhiking to a new place every few months. One of these places was the wilderness just north of Mount McKinley, and unfortunately this turned out to be fatal. His decomposing body was found a few weeks later by a few moose hunters. One of the things I love about this book is that it's a biography, but it's written in the form of a novel. Throughout the book, you become connected with the main character, Chris McCandless. In the first chapter, the author tells you that the protagonist dies, and then goes back in time to narrate the main character's earlier life. And I became so connected with Chris that I was hoping he wouldn't die later in the book, even though I knew it was coming. This book is very suspenseful, even though you know what Chris's fate is. Krakauer shouldn't have told you about the protagonist's death at the beginning of the book, but I think he did it so it wouldn't inspire people to do what Chris did if they knew what his fate was. This didn't work for me, though. I was inspired by Chris McCandless' story. I thought it would be cool to do what he did someday. I wouldn't be as foolish as not telling anyone where I went or scaring the crap out of the people who cared for me, but still I'd like to go out into the wild and try to live on my own. So, overall, I love this book. I hope you love it too. Now, I know people generate different ideas about this book, but I hope that once you read it, you think that Chris McCandless didn't die because of a stupid dream, but because of a simple accident that could have happened to anyone if they were in his position. I feel that Chris was starting to get homesick, and he would have found his way home had this event not occurred. This is one of the only books where I felt pity and sadness because one of the characters died. Whether because it was a true story or because I could connect with him very well, it was a very moving book. Now I'm going to read you a page or two of the beginning of the book, so you can see how you like the author's style, see if it is your book. If you want to know, there's a real picture of Chris McCandless right there. Okay. There's an author's note at the beginning, but I won't bother to read that. Chapter 1. The Alaskan Interior. Jim Gallian had driven 4 miles out of Fairbanks when he spotted the hitchhiker standing in the snow beside the road, thumb raised high, shivering in the gray Alaska dawn. He didn't appear to be very old, 18, maybe 19 at most. A rifle protruded from the young man's backpack, but he looked friendly enough. A hitchhiker with a Remington semiautomatic isn't the sort of thing that gives motorists pause in the 49th state. Gallian steered his truck onto the shoulder and told the kid to climb in. The hitchhiker swung his pack into the bed of the Ford and introduced himself as Alex. Alex, Gallian responded, fishing for the last name. Just Alex, the young man replied, pointedly rejecting the bait. 5 feet 7 or 8, with a wiry build, he claimed to be 24 years old and said he was from South Dakota. He explained that he wanted to ride as far as the edge of Denali National Park, where he intended to walk deep into the bush and live off the land for a few months. Gallian, a union electrician, was on his way to Anchorage, 240 miles beyond Denali, on the George Parks Highway. He told Alex he'd drop him off whenever he wanted. Alex's backpack looked as though it weighed only 25 or 30 pounds, which struck Gallian, an accomplished hunter and woodsman, as an improbably light load for a stay of several months in the back country, especially so early in spring. He wasn't carrying anywhere near as much food and gear as you'd expect a guy to be carrying for that kind of trip, Gallian recalls. The sun came up. As they rolled down from the forested ridges above the Tenassa River, Alex gazed across the expanse of windswept muskeg stretching to the south. Gallian wondered whether he'd picked up one of those crackpots from the lower 48 who came north to live out ill-considered Jack London fantasies. Alaska has long been a magnet for dreamers and misfits, people who think the unsolicited enormity of the last frontier will patch all the holes in their lives. The bush is an unforgiving place, however, that cares nothing for hope or longing. People from the outside, reports Gallian in a slow, sonorous drawl. They'll pick up a copy of Alaska magazine, thumb through it, get to thinking, hey, I'm going to get up there, live off the land, they'll claim me a piece of the good life. But when they get here, and actually head out into the bush, well, it isn't like the magazines make it out to be. Rivers are big and fast, the mosquitoes eat you alive. Most places there aren't a lot of animals to hunt. Living in the bush isn't no picnic. It was a 2-hour drive from Fairbanks to the edge of Denali Park. The more they talked, the less Alex struck Gallian as a nutcase. He was congenial and seemed well educated. He peppered Gallian with thoughtful questions about the kind of small game that lived in the country, the kinds of berries he could eat, that kind of thing. Well, that's Jon Krakauer's style of writing, and if you like it, I suggest you read this book. It's one of my favorite. I hope it becomes one of your favorite.